Welcome back to Leaving the Lies and Speaking Your Truth. We're on our part two interview with Jessica and Yaaqob, who were in the house of Yahweh and married each other in the house of Yahweh and been married to now for 26 years. They're sharing their story with us. We left off in asking Jessica the question about what were her thoughts and feelings when the multiple marriage came out, and how were you taught that you were supposed to react? And what were you being counseled at the time?
Oh, well, of course, when multiple marriage came out, no woman wants to hear that she has to share her husband with anyone. So it was really hard for me, very hard for me to try to convince myself to accept this. And it was brought out during our betrothal. And so we weren't even married.
Right.
And I was, they bring out this teaching that, my soon to be husband could end up getting another wife. And so, yeah, that was a lot. It was very scary for me. And I would share that with my counselors, and they would tell me, well, you have no right to question him. You just need to be the perfect wife and just do what he tells you to do. And you're just, if he takes on another wife, that's what happens. And it's like, wow.
So were
So
you
like
were
I have
you
no,
explicitly told not to share your feelings about it with your husband? Like if you were
I wasn't
upset about it, were you told don't tell him that?
I wasn't told that. I was basically told that if I do, I'm going to get shut down
Okay.
because it's not my place to question what he as a head feels needs to be done.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, it was hard. I did question him on it, and basically what they told me that he was going to shut me down because of what he was counseled, that
Right.
she doesn't need to know anything. So,
Wow. So how were you guys being treated about getting married? Because it seems that they kind of I was surprised when you guys told this part of your story, just because my understanding is that according to the Bible teaching and according to what the House of Yahweh taught, that basically once you were intimate with each other, you were essentially already married according to the scripture. That was my understanding. So were you guys
right.
being at that point encouraged and supported about getting married?
The total opposite. Her parents were always they're always there for their family, and I knew that they were going to be there for her as well.
Right.
Uh, I went through a lot of hardships with her father, but that was really my
That was
doing.
a personal thing. It was not a counseling thing. That was
Yeah,
my dad
for
Okay.
trying to
trying to
protect her,
protect me.
trying to
Right.
So,
protect
Right.
his daughters. Uh, we faced a lot of adversity in the process of being betrothed, getting to the point where we wanted to get married. It just seems like a lot of them, Israel never did, never fought against it. Never, matter of fact, he was trying to push it
yeah.
through. He couldn't himself understand why they were trying to hold it back so much. Um, and he's the one that made the final call. As a matter of fact, that he said, you know what, this is enough.
Mm.
Y'all need to let them get married. And but up to that point, it was really hard. It was like I had my senior class ring. They saw her with that on one time, told her to take it off. Um,
I wore
which
your jacket a couple of times and
yeah, my jacket, and they didn't want her wearing my leather
anything.
jacket.
Yeah.
So
Do you
I
have
wasn't
any
aware what really.
suspicions as to, I mean, even in hindsight, to why they were behaving or reacting in this way to the two of you getting married?
Honestly, I think I'm gonna go back to the fact that we had relations, and I thought that this is just how it worked.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't I don't think during that time did I put multiple marriage into the mix of it. Like
Okay.
if they were to, because like I said earlier, uh, and how you understood the scriptures, if you have relations with someone, it's basically you're considered that person's wife or
Right.
husband and stuff like that. So I was like, there's no way that they're going to break their own laws you
Right.
know, because it's not like they can keep me from him and then take me for themselves. So
Right.
that I didn't think about that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it
but
just I was quite surprised that and what if anything was being said, because there was a what is the age difference between you two?
5
5 years.
years.
5 years. And was that being
Mhm.
brought up at all in the counseling? And if so, what was being said about that?
Absolutely.
No, it's, her parents were told that they could file charges against me for statutory rape. And because technically, and I think she told me, correct me if I'm wrong, that she was told he raped you
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
one of the counselors. He basically raped you.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of things that were said that were really, we were already dealing with things, of course, of multiple marriage and stuff like that. I didn't realize this till years later, but I thought to myself, maybe they were, because they knew the multiple marriage was coming out. Because I doubt, maybe not all the Cohen, a lot of them knew. And when Kiefer brought it out, then maybe it was in the works or the plans that, well, when that's available, I could see them being attracted to Jessica and saying that's somebody I would want in my family, especially a Kohan or just anybody else. But after seeing what went on with all the younger women getting married to older men, mainly the Kohans,
Right.
then that's when I started thinking and interrupted, when I slept with her. And it was really hard to go through because we were going through our own problems. But for her to be told, first telling me you don't have to share and tell her anything of what you're doing is completely, to me, that's a crazy concept,
Right.
because you have to communicate as a couple,
Yeah.
Right.
especially if you're going to be together for so long. You have to communicate and share things with each other. It's not about, well, you share everything with me because you're the wife. I don't have to tell you anything.
Right.
And if we would have kept going along that road, we wouldn't be together,
No.
But
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
And oh, go
real
ahead,
quick,
Jessica.
real quick, it's crazy that you bring up the age, right? Because he had mentioned how there was someone else, another guy in the house, and he was a man. He was a man.
Yep.
I was 15 or 16 at the time, and he was well into his 20s. But yet
that's
they preferred,
right. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
They preferred me to go with the older gentleman
Right.
than Co.
Right. So,
Who's
but yet they were
my
using the
age.
age difference as an excuse, and yet within years or probably months after that, they had
Yeah.
men in their 50s, 60s, and possibly 70s marrying girls as younger than you were,
Yeah.
which is kind of, very, very hypocritical to say the least. I just found that
It really
interesting,
is.
which is why I asked that question.
Yeah.
And you don't realize a lot of things until you're out of that type of environment. But
Right.
this, and I'm going to say culture, because we are part of a culture here where we live here in America.
Right.
And this culture is not built around supporting a multiple marriage family. It's just not.
No.
Now, if we were a culture that grew up around it, were involved in it, had relatives in it, and that's the
That's
lifestyle
all
we
we've
knew,
known. Yeah.
and it was practice, it was just the way of life for us, I could see,
Right.
I could see something like that being brought out. But with our culture the way it is, I don't see how to work. Even these shows that come out with these multiple,
Marriages.
what was
Yeah.
that?
Like Sister Wives.
Sister Wives.
Sister
Yes.
Wives. They had issues.
Yes.
They had.
Yes,
it's
but
just not.
and it's funny because I
Yeah.
was actually just going to use that same reference, Yaaqob. But guess what? They were all in communication with him, and they were all in communication with each other. There wasn't all this secrecy of you don't tell her this or nobody knows this. I mean, I can understand them not wanting you to share intimate things, but the House
Right.
of Yahweh is basically saying you don't even have to share the basic information. She doesn't even have to know that you're getting married or what you're doing, which I'm
Yeah.
going to say comes from the top down because I mean, everybody knows I was married to Yisroel Hawkins' son, and there was a time when my husband at the time when I was in the house of Yahweh was gone, and I thought he was gone for an extra long time, and I was getting a little worried. And so I called my mother-in-law, Kay, and I said, Kay, I don't know where Justin is, and it's like 9 o'clock at night, and I don't know where he is and when he's coming home. And she's like, well, hang on, I'll make some phone calls and see if I can figure out where he is and what's going on. Well, and it ended up coming back that I was called back by one of Yisroel's cronies. I can't even remember who it was, and I was told that I was not allowed to ask where he was or what he was doing or when he was coming home, and that he would be home when he got home, and I had no right to ask where he was. And I'm like, I don't even know if he's been in a car accident. Are you kidding me? I can't ask where my husband is and when he's going to be home. So that kind of mentality of a wife just not having the right to ask questions is just kind of his mentality. And he's kind of pushes his agenda onto his congregation. His way of thinking is always the way things go there. So that's something that I think really was not really mostly about the multiple marriage thing, but was more just about his mentality.
Well, I think you're right on that, because I think a lot of the rules that were enforced when it came to multiple marriage were so that he had his privacy to do what he needed to do. And at the time, you couldn't say, well, you're not practicing what you preach. Well, yes, I am, because I'm saying you don't have to tell him this. You don't have to tell him that.
Because he didn't want to have to tell.
Well, but you got to look at it too. He had many, many wives.
Yes.
So, I don't know how you could. The only way I saw that it stayed together is he just really wasn't there.
Right.
He really wasn't around them. But, that's. I think about it now, and I don't see how it just would have worked. It just, with us, it wouldn't have worked. It would have destroyed us.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely. And it probably would have, me as a person, I wouldn't be who I am now if we didn't go through the things that we went through. But I think it would have been detrimental for me and my personality and the way that I feel if I would have partaken in something like that.
It's amazing how hindsight is 20/20, and you realize things that you're like, well, boy, I'm glad that never happened, because that would have ruined me. You know what I mean? But you don't think of that at the time. But, sometimes you're glad that things work out the way they do, even if you're not happy about it in the moment.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you and be honest with you, at first, Jessica can confirm this too, is I didn't feel like I had anything to share with you guys. I didn't consider doing the show. And then after we talked to y'all the first time, we had a talk outside, and I was like, you don't realize how much you have to
and
share.
How much you remember.
Yeah, and the things that you went through until you really talk to someone that's, on the outside looking in a little bit, outside of the box.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up, Yaaqob, because that might encourage other people who are thinking they don't have a story, that we're in the house of Yahweh, that are watching us and saying, well, I don't have a story either. Everyone has a story. I say, if you were there for a week, you have a story. Might be a short one, but you have a story.
If they were in the house of Yahweh and they're not there now, I guarantee you 100% every single one of them do.
Yep.
Every single one.
Just like any cult, any organization that tries to control how you are as a person, they all have stories.
Yep.
We all do.
Absolutely.
So, and I honestly feel like I can relate to other people's experiences, even if it wasn't House of Yahweh experience.
Me too. Me too. I've watched that Leah Remini's The Aftermath, and I'm like, wow, there's so many similarities. I'm like, this is insane. Do they get the same playbook? The House of Yahweh, I think, uses a lot of these same techniques. This is insane.
I think there's a cult guideline out there.
Yeah.
Well, if it wasn't a cult, why are the patterns the same with people that come out and share?
Yes.
It's like the same, different stories.
Yep.
But same kind of patterns.
Even
Very
different parts of the
similar
world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people will say, oh yeah, this was used on me. That tactic was used on me. And then you're like, wow, that's insane. That's crazy, because you don't even realize that you're being manipulated or used. You don't realize it's a tactic until sometimes you've been out for years and you're able to process it. And you're like, whoa, I was being played even way back at that point in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we got off track here a little bit, which I love doing, but we're going to get back on track. Can you guys walk us through the process of the bride price and how that played out for you guys?
Well, back then it was the bride price was valued off or taken from the value of what the shekel was at that time for that year. Um, and mine, I believe, was around 96 US dollars is what I owed to the father.
Okay.
I was in the work at the time, which at that time, starting off in the work, I wasn't making really any money. So my mother, who also was not, she wasn't wealthy, she wasn't financially independent in any way, but she helped get the money together and gave it to me to give to her father.
Oh, wait, real quick. Along with the bride's price, you had to pay off your tickets.
Oh, yes. I
Tickets.
had tickets from Houston.
Traffic
tickets.
Oh, okay.
And that was part of, I couldn't get married to her until I took care of those tickets. So I had to travel down there. I stayed down there for a few days, paid off the tickets. And when I gave the money for the bride price, they were upset because I'd gotten the money from my mother. Well, she also helped me pay off the tickets. I was in the work. I wasn't making any money.
Right.
My mother has helped us out tremendously from day one, ever since we've been in the work. But they said you didn't really pay the bride's price because the money didn't come from you. It came from your mother. And so it was just one thing after another. Okay, another excuse. What do you?
I was just going to say, do you think that this was just another way for them to try to put a roadblock in front of you guys?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I got to tell you, looking back on it, I don't know how I got through that without really just losing it. Because of course I would get upset, but I never got to the point where I just went batshit crazy. Because
yeah,
I think about it now, and I'm surprised that I just dealt with it the way that I did.
Because it seems like it was just one thing after another. It was, you guys can't get married because of the age difference. Oh, well, you can't get married because he essentially raped you. Oh, you can't get married because your mom paid the bride price. And it was just one thing after another, all these excuses why they tried to keep you guys apart. And honestly, I've never heard of anybody else in the house of Yahweh with a story like yours. I don't even fully understand it, but I think there's something underlying underneath this that has not been fully uncovered. Like maybe there was somebody else that specifically wanted to marry Jessica that was involved in the counseling or something, because I find your story pretty unique in the way that it was handled. Because
you said you knew people that have been in our situation, that got together before they were married, and didn't go through not near as much as what we went through.
I don't think they had to even go to any counseling. I mean, I think you guys know who I'm talking about.
Plenty of that.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, plenty.
Yeah, I don't think they went through any counseling even. So I'm like, there was something unique to your situation. And I think part of it may be that the multiple marriage stuff was coming out at the time, but there was also something else involved in that, and the reasoning or the way some of that was handled. There was something else going on underneath that I'm not 100% sure what it was, but there was something weird there.
Well, I think had to be something sinister. I mean, if you think about it, her parents were told they could charge me with statutory rape. Statutory rape is consenting, but the age difference, she's underage for it to be legal. But then she's told personally, he raped you.
Right.
That is totally different, okay?
Right.
That's like trying to plant a seed or something, but I can guarantee you she was never forced.
Yeah, that absolutely not.
Never forced. I never would have done that. That just would have been sick to do that. But just to make those. Go ahead.
Oh, and then for them to, on top of that, try to suggest that she marry somebody else. Yeah. I forgot about that one. Throwing that in there too. It's like, where is that one coming from?
Yeah.
Which that didn't worry me just because of the fact that she was completely and totally devoted. I could tell that much.
Yeah.
She was devoted, and she wasn't going to change her mind unless I changed it for her by mistreating her or whatever. So outside of that, she was not going to stray from what she wanted. And that's, she had told her mom and her parents that's who I want to marry, and that's it. And she was always determined. So I knew they weren't going to sway her from that with anything like that. Like, even if he made money, even if he was wealthy, she wasn't going to, change her mind at that point.
Wow. So that kind of leads me into my next question a little bit. Most couples that got married in the house of Yahweh, I know of a couple exceptions, but most people that got married in the house of Yahweh, including myself and Autumn, who is gone because of technical difficulties, I forgot to mention that, I think, on the air, but have since divorced. After they leave, they tend to, most of them end up divorced. Can you guys share with us how long you've been married and why you think you were able to beat those odds?
We've been married for 26 years, and I think in a wise Kohan, which I still find him wise, I have no qualms against him, Benaiah, he told us one time that a marriage is not 50-50. A marriage is 100 and 100. So 100 from me, 100 from him. And it'll, which it does, it really works. I think part of what we have too is our opposites. He's very strong-headed. He really is. And, which is fine, because if I'm going to have a man that I'm married to, I want him to be able to take care of me. I want him to be able to defend me the way that he did from the beginning of our relationship up until now. So that I appreciate a lot. And, when it comes to opposites, I thought that he was a bad boy. I was a sweet, innocent girl, and it just works out. I also feel that communication is very, very key. Whatever he has to say, I need to stop being a brat and, take a listen to it. Right. And whatever I have to say doesn't have to be a nagging thing to him. But, he needs to take into consideration my feelings, my thoughts, the same, vice versa, what he's considering and what he feels is right. So I think that in a lot of the ways that helped us to stay together. But if you have anything else to add to it.
Well, a lot of it, like a contributing factor of us still being together or beating the odds, like you said, we don't watch much TV. We talk a lot. We talk a lot, and it's not just about trying to communicate and share and find out where we're at as a couple. We just talk. We talk about everything. So that's been, our main hangout, except when it gets cold or the weather doesn't permit. We're outside quite a bit when we get off of work. We're outside for the majority of the time, and while we're out there, we're talking and just, shooting the breeze with each other. So we're constantly communicating. And when we're just talking about different things, it doesn't leave a lot of time or space for arguments to pop up. We both, she's very, very committed when it comes to the children, the grandbabies. She's always been that way from day one. One of the best mothers I've ever known, of course. But she's very dedicated to her children, her grandchildren, and I try to help her out around the house too. I do not think, I'm not going to be, tyrant. No, I'm not going to be a guy that tells other guys that, you really shouldn't have to do anything in the kitchen. Well,
right.
When children come along and grandchildren come along, you have to help, especially if, like I said, she's very committed and she tries to spend as much time with them as she can.
Yep.
So she's the one that gets up early in the morning, takes our youngest to school because she's still going to middle school.
Right.
And she does that because she wants to, and she's always done that. She's always been the one. I will once in a blue moon, but
right.
As far as beating the odds, I think it's just communication and just talking.
This question wasn't on the paper, so just forgive me if you don't want to answer it. But I guess what I'm really curious about is specifically, how did you guys transition from your house of Yahweh, for lack of a better word, almost brainwash mentality, and come out of that and work in it together? Was that just the communication? Did you guys discuss those things together and kind of come out of that brainwashing together? Because I think that is when most people end up divorcing, is either partially because they got together under very because I say that I will tell people that I don't think my marriage lasted because I think we got married under very false pretenses and married cult versions of each other, and really didn't really know who truly who we were, even ourselves at the core. And when we started to figure out who each other were, we weren't really compatible. That's what we discovered, that without the cult there controlling our every move and our every aspect of life, we weren't compatible. So maybe you guys kind of got lucky in the fact that even outside of the cult, you're obviously quite compatible. But how did you work through that transition of going from that cult mentality into kind of normal life mentality?
I would have to say, for me, I still hold the teachings of he's my head, he's my husband.
Okay.
So, when it comes down to it, if the girls ask me, can I do something?
Mm-hmm.
And I say no. They've always known since the time they've been born that he has the last word.
Right.
If he disagrees with anything that I tell you, he has the right to overrule it.
Right.
So, and I'm a type of person that would prefer to be taken care of. I can take care of people. I can take care of you. I know if it ever comes up, I can take care of the finances and stuff like that. But I prefer not to do everything on my own.
Right.
One of the things after we had left was we had a little spat and an argument, and he was like, "You need to be submissive," or I was like, "Wait, hold." We're not there anymore. You cannot tell me what to do. You have to sit here and we have to talk things out. You might not like what I have to say, but that's just how it's going to go.
But you're going to listen to it.
Yes. And honestly, Melody, it wasn't a quick flip. I am going to tell you,
it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
And we still till this day, we still may have discussions
Mm-hmm.
to where it's like, oh, we haven't touched on that yet. Let's talk this through.
Right.
Maybe he has an understanding of how it should go, and I have an understanding. So we're always constantly learning about each other, the way that we think, the way that we feel. But that's why we talk a lot of things through. So.
And it wasn't just a smooth, I don't want anyone to think that it was,
it was
maybe smooth transition to come from the house and still be together out here outside of that environment. We had quite a few spats.
Yeah.
There was
several
a lot of things that she held on to that it has taken her years to get off her shoulders. And it's occurring a lot less often.
Yeah.
A lot less.
Do you think that's partially because of the teachings of the House of Yahweh, Jessica, that you held a lot in, that you didn't feel that you could express your feelings about a lot of things? So when you got out, you had a lot of things that were built up inside?
I think the fact that there was so much that you can't just get it all out in one conversation and get it resolved. So I would pick and choose the times when I would. And every once in a while, I bring up a subject and I try to let him know, hey, this is what I'm uncomfortable talking about this, or when you joke around about this or that. And he'd be like, it's in the past. It's okay. We're together. But for me, it's like, you need to feel what I was feeling, going through what I was going through. I was like, so please, hear me out. So, it would be a lot of that back and forth, and he would hate bringing up certain things because he knew that it would bring up a subject that I felt needed to be talked through. Right. So that's why it takes a lot of time, because both of you guys have to be prepared for it.
Right.
Mentally, emotionally, and you need to have everything that you want to say and get off your chest. You need to know why you're saying it, how it hurt you, and that your significant other needs to learn how to accept it and accept their part of if they did you wrong. Accept it and explain to you, apologize for it. That's something that you were being brainwashed into thinking that this is how you need to behave and you need to feel and take in. But,
so it sounds to me like basically that, Yaaqob, you showed Jessica a lot of empathy for not even really, while you were maybe in the house of Yahweh, considering how she was feeling, or how this was affecting her, and you put yourself in her shoes. Is that, would you say that's correct, that you kind of put yourself in her position and were able to empathize with her?
Yes. Absolutely correct. It took me years to really start listening to her. I mean, and marriage it's probably we'll probably learn till the day we're not together anymore.
Yeah.
We're put in the dirt, hopefully. Uh, but it took me years to really get where she was coming from, to listen to her, to understand her. And what I want to expound on is, like, we had counselors in the house,
Right.
but everything that she's sharing with you right now, you just think about it. You can't share that in that environment.
Right.
You can't really open up like that. It's
Right.
just not, it doesn't work that way. So,
Right, because then you're labeled as unrighteous or rebellious, or you get excommunication papers. I should know.
and I'd say maybe a handful of people that were there I could count as actual counselors, because when you think about how big of a job that is to be someone's counselor, that you could have a very large impact on those people's lives. And what you tell them is very, very important.
Right.
So there were some people who were just by the book scripture, and you can't counsel like that. We've seen counselors out here in the world that just blew our minds. Of course, they would have said you can't do that because they're not in the house of Yahweh and whatnot.
Right.
But these people that we were blessed to find a good counselor. The one that we spoke with, we were very lucky with that. He's since passed away, but had a huge impact on us.
Okay, so you guys got counseling outside of the house of Yahweh.
We did.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that may be some part of what has helped you guys as well and saved your marriage. I imagine that played a part, because I mean, from what
that did play a part.
With her, she went to see him.
Okay.
There was some other things that were involved that she was going through outside of that, but
Right.
He was a really good counselor. The first counseling session I sat down with him, he basically broke my whole thing down. He, on a dry erase board.
Yes.
I mean, just from me talking to him and him asking me questions, he broke me down basically why I was the way I was, and I was blown away by it because he was right.
Wow.
He was right.
Wow.
But I counseled with him twice, to be honest with you, just twice.
Oh wow. Because that I was going to think that you had a little bit more than that, only because I feel like, and maybe from what I've heard, Yaaqob, you really didn't have counselors in the house of Yahweh. You had beraters, and you got a lot of berating. So I would have thought that, I'm sure you appreciated actually talking to somebody who was counseling you for once. That was probably like a breath of fresh air.
It was totally different than what I received. And, I was to blame for some of the things that I got counseling for. It's just seeing the pattern of it and what we went through as a couple, just trying to get to the point to where we got married and how hard that was.
Right. And
the different things that were brought up and said, there was, I don't understand why they made it so difficult. I really don't. But it was very difficult.
Okay, I've gotten off track again, so I'm going to get back on track here. Yaaqob, I know that for the most part that you did kind of, at least for a period of time while you were in the house of Yahweh, played kind of an overbearing head of household role, as was taught in the house of Yahweh. And can you tell us when and how you began to change that and how that affected your marriage?
I think I started to change it when I really started seeing her personality started to change for the worse. I was very jealous. And I can be honest about this, she's the first person that I was ever in love with. In high school, I wasn't interested in finding the love of my life and all that. That's not what I was looking for.
Right.
She's really the first person that I ever loved and that I have loved. So I never knew what that was like as far as, having those feelings. I was very jealous and very protective, very jealous. So on top of that, and the way that we were taught, to be in the house, the husband's role compared to the wife's role,
Right.
It put a lot on her, and it started to break her spirit, basically. She got
And
to the
just to
point where
clarify,
she
this is
closed
while you
herself.
were still in the house of Yahweh, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
yes, yes.
Yes.
Um, she closed herself off. She kept herself from her family because of me,
Wow.
because of my jealousy. Uh, Friends, she was afraid to talk to people. She was afraid to even just joke around. It got to the point where it was literally about to break her, and she thought about going back home to Hawaii. Um, I knew she had gone through a lot of those things. I think when we had our first child, Kim Dahlia, is I knew that I had to change what I was doing because now there was a baby involved,
Right.
and we had to both be there for her. So I think a lot of it really started when Kim Dahlia was born. I started
I think it was a little
maturing in
before
a lot of
that
ways.
when we found out
Yeah,
that we
before
were
that, but
expecting.
and the way it affected our relationship is, if I hadn't turned sooner, even if she would have stayed here, I think we would have had ongoing issues last longer into the marriage than what they did. I think they stopped where they stopped because I stopped and changed the way that I was with her.
Right.
So if it would have went further, then I think our issues would have lasted further into the marriage as well.
Okay, and now the next question I'm going to ask you, Jessica, but I'm going to kind of hook people in because I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to ask you not to answer till we start our next session because we're going to have a part 3. This is going to be a 3-parter. I was thinking it was going to be at least 2, but it's going to be 3. So, Jessica, um, specifically, what helped you, or when and how did you find your voice? And how long had you been in the marriage at the time when you started voicing your own opinions? So think about that, and I'm going to send you a new link to a new session. We'll be right back.
Okay.